I want to be mindful of everybody's time. Okay, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for joining today and welcome. We are going to record this, so if you are uncomfortable with that, please turn off your video. But welcome again to our series of Zoom sessions on the Oddfellow Cemetery. Again, just a few directions before we get started. Please mute yourselves. You can certainly unmute as we go to questions and answers. And if you do have a hot question that cannot wait, please type it into the chat and we promise we will get to it. So today, you will be introduced to a Spanish-American war veteran. And we are extremely delighted to have, for the first time, a modern day relative. We've not been able to connect our veterans or others who are buried out there with their descendants, but we have that today. Her name is Miss Pamela Daub Miller. She's a Winston-Salem native, and she is the great granddaughter of Mr. Alexander Kemp. So we will hear from her in just a little bit. We do have, I did see one of our officials, Mr. Fleming Alameen. Would you like to just give us a word or two before we start, sir?
Thank you very much, Ms. Stark. I am honored to be here today as your District 8 County Commissioner, and of course, the cemeteries in the district that I represent. It's just so interesting that my younger brother, that you may not realize, Joseph Bernard Jackson, has been involved in sort of helping to get the place in order. He worked for the city of Winston-Salem for a while as a landscape architect, and of course, Duke University hired him from the city. He's retired now from Duke, but he would bring some of his students and peers sometimes to help clean up the Oddfellow Cemetery. So I'm so glad to be a part of this effort. It just so happens that whenever I go down to Fort Macon, I visit the Fort Macon Museum, and they had a Black troop down there during the Spanish-American War. A young man, of course, from Durham was the leader of that effort down there. And it's an interesting history, how they were trained to go to battle in that location. And very shortly, of course, after that, the fort became the property of the state. But I encourage anyone who's not had that opportunity, is down in Emerald Island, to go take a visit to Fort Macon and see the actual visual to the people who lived there during that time to be trained as soldiers during that war. Again, I'm just proud to be here, and whatever I can do to assist in this effort, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm a history buff also, so we got to preserve what has been ours and the contributions made by our people over the years, and make our young people understand the value of that going forward. And thank you again, Ms. Doc, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate that. And as I said to Mr. Larson last week, and we will be calling on you, so don't be surprised.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and get started. Our graduate intern is in charge of the PowerPoints today. So today we're going to talk about Mr. Alexander Kemp from the Spanish-American War. Okay, Cliff, next slide, please. Now, I had to really refresh my memory. I was not the best history student in high school, and I knew the name Spanish-American War, but I really did not know details about it. So I had to do a little bit of research. And I found out that it happened in 1898. Prior to that, Spain had colonized Cuba. And so there were conflicts between Cuba and Spain off and on from 1868 through 1878. And then I thought this was interesting. Spain didn't really free Cuba, but they gave them parliamentary representation in 1880. Don't know exactly what that meant for Cuba, but Spain abolished slavery there in 1886. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So by 1898, the United States was a little concerned about Americans who were there. This sounds familiar. And they sent the battleship Maine to Havana Harbor. And in February, there was an explosion, which sank the Marine, and it killed 260 seamen. Now, from my reading, it said that people were not quite sure what caused the explosion, but that didn't matter because then Americans had this rallying cry, remember the Maine. And so the United States declared war in April of that year. Now, this was another interesting fact to me. There was fighting in other places as well. So the US troops were sent to Cuba along with Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders. We all know about them. But we didn't know, although we learned it the first time, that Buffalo soldiers, our Buffalo soldiers, were sent there too to fight. I also did not know that the Rough Riders was a group of cavalry volunteers. You know, I thought they were military guys who had been trained and, you know, had all of the military expertise, but they included cowboys, miners, and college athletes. I thought that was pretty interesting. So I guess these folks just volunteered to go because it was war and we're going to fight. We're going to remember the Maine. Okay, Cliff, next one. So this was just a picture that I got from history.com and also the Library of Congress, the Battle of Manila Bay in the Philippines. And, you know, it's typical war. It's not pretty. It's not a good thing. I wish we didn't have to worry about it so much, especially today. Okay, next. Now, getting back to our veterans, our soldiers, the first session we learned about PFC John Hickman from North Carolina, from Winston-Salem, actually. And he fought in World War I. He was a member of the descended unit from the Buffalo Soldiers. And as you can see, there is his headstone. His is very close to the parking lot and very easy to get to. On the left, you will see Private Kemp's. And although it looks like it might be propped up, it is now flattened. A year or so ago, it was upright, just as John Hickman's. But it was I think that's a very detailed headstone. It's a little bit different from any of the other veteran headstones that we have. And as you can see, born in 1871, died in 1945, and his great-granddaughter is going to give us more information on him personally. Okay, next. And again, we spoke about the Buffalo Soldiers previously. We know that they were members of the 9th and 10th Cavalry, and the 9th Cavalry was sent to Cuba. Okay, next. So Private Kemp was born in Virginia. His parents were Alexander and Mary Smith Kemp. He died at age 68, and his wife Nanny was 48 years old. I asked Miss Daub Miller, was there indeed 20 years gap in their ages? And she said, yes, that was true. This information was taken from a census record. Eventually, after the military, Mr. Kemp became a teacher. He had enlisted in June 1898, and he received an honorable discharge in February 1899. At this point, we, the Friends of the Odd Fellows, don't know a lot more about him, but I am going to get together with his great-granddaughter, and we're going to talk and talk and talk, and she's going to give us all that information. We're going to transcribe it, and then we're going to place it in our Odd Fellows directory. We have a directory of about roughly 8,000 names. We don't have a lot of information on them. We have some death certificates for probably just about 100. So it is just absolutely stunning that we will now be able to link a lot of information to one of our buried veterans, and we're very happy about that. Okay, next, please. So I just wanted to point this out because as Ms. Wood reminded me last time, well, when do you go out there and work? So we have work days every month. It is every third Saturday from 9:30 a.m. to 12 noon. We welcome volunteers. Mr. Elamine, if you have people who want to come out, please send them our way. We need volunteers not only for the heavy duty elbow grease and pulling of vegetation and all of that, but as you can see, we're also interested in getting started on ancestry work on the internet on ancestry.com or familysearch.org. that would be a great opportunity for teenagers. They would help us out. We would give them a wonderful, glowing letter to put in their resume, and it could also fulfill community service. So if anyone has additional questions about coming out to work, you can contact me at lsdark@hotmail.com. So I want to ask, before we get to Ms. Dow Miller, are there any questions about any of the information so far? Does anyone have any questions or any comments? Okay. Well,
Yes, Linda,
oh,
I do.
yes.
I am absolutely amazed at what you all have accomplished since you first visited Salem Town,
Oh,
about
wow.
3 or 4 years ago now. It is absolutely incredible. I'm so impressed. And we can't wait to have you back here to update everybody on all you've done.
Well, thank you. One thing I forgot to mention, we do offer tours now as well, as Greg said earlier. Previously, it was a little bit dangerous to go out there because of the tree stumps and the vines and the holes and whatnot and the depressions. And so we have worked very hard to try to clear all of that up. So we can offer tours. I have done a tour for a family reunion. We've done tours for churches. So if anyone is interested, please contact me and let me know, and we will arrange for that. We're also there not just on Saturdays. Greg and some others come out sometimes during the week. So if you're going to be, say, in town, for instance, and you can only get out on a Wednesday, give us a call. We will try to make arrangements to meet you. Okay, Pamela, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is such an honor for me to speak about my great-grandfather. You guys know him as a soldier, but our family also knows him as a soldier for the Lord. He was a very devout Christian, and that was what his whole life was based upon. He was a very committed man to both his family and to our country. He had so many different talents, but I just like to share with you just a few of them. He was a music teacher, and he loved music above pretty much anything else. And he used that skill not just in the community teaching students, but he also used it in his church as well. In our home, of course, he died long before I was ever born. But I know so much about him is because my great-grandmother, which was much younger than him, we all lived in the same house with me growing up until I was a grown woman. So I spent each and every day with her. So I learned so much about the times that they lived in, their relationship, their marriage, and all that happened many years before I was ever thought about. Very committed husband, and he always made a promise to his family that when it was his time to go, he was going to ensure that they were taken care of, that his church was taken care of, the community, and anyone that he was involved with. On the fun side of him, being a music teacher, he also had a great love for music. And he had a player piano. Some people may not know what it is, but a player piano in his home. And when he was alive, it was in his living room. When I was growing up, it was in our den. And that player piano stayed there until way after I was an adult. That was a big centerpiece. And that piano was used to entertain and practice a lot of very famous gospel singers that came into Winston-Salem, because at that time they couldn't stay in hotels or whatever. They stayed in church people's homes. So it was really, really nice to have a place they could go and practice, serve God, wash their robes, their clothes, and everything. So our house was one of those, and it continued to be that all the time that I grew up, because he wasn't the only musician in our family. So that was an ongoing thing. He also had a Victrola floor model player that played the 78 VPN records. He had a huge collection, and he liked all types of music. And it was very interesting because he had a lot of classical music, and he had a lot of different types of genre. So he was a very well-read man. Also, with his piano, he had a lot of sheet music from everything you could think about, for things that I even read about after I got into school. So a lot of times you don't know what the other sides of a person was. He was also a good businessman. He was very good with finances. He was a good bookkeeper, and he was a no-nonsense kind of person, very serious-minded, kind and loving, but very serious-minded. So he did marry my great-grandmother that was 20 plus years younger than he was, and she was so in love with him that once he passed away, she never dated. She never thought about it. She never considered it, because she said that there would be no man in this world that could take his place. And I think that's honorable, because she would share with me some of the things about his characteristics and some of the things about how a man should be and everything else. And it just set the pace and the tone for me and other family members to know what to look for and what not to accept. And so I'm so proud of him for that. But the religious part stayed with our family for generations and generations. And he gave so very much. And I'm so very proud. And I thank each of you for this opportunity. Just let me make just some comments about the man on the other side that you guys may not have known. And he loved good food and loved good parties and entertainment, clean fun, and everything. So I thank each of you so much for giving me this honor, this opportunity, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much. We feel like we know him now. Now, there's a couple of questions. First of all, where is Mrs. Nanny Kemp buried? Is she buried at Evergreen?
Yes, she is.
So you are aware of where her gravesite is?
I am.
Okay, and we can find that out.
You get all the flowers too. Every time I do cemeteries, I take a roll of all of them. So yes.
We can find out from the management office where she is buried, and it probably would be nice to add to our directory once we get the information, all the other information from you on Mr. Kemp. And
yeah, I have that information. If you're talking about the lot and the plot number and everything, I have all of that.
Well, I'm thinking of a picture. So I'd go out to Evergreen and just take a picture of it and then put that in our directory with Mr. Kemp's picture as well. And then let's see, I saw something else. Where was your home, I think? Where was your home located in Winston?
It was on 2nd Street when Mr. Kemp was alive. It was where 52 was on 2nd Street, but with the redevelopment and when it came through, it caused us to have to move. I actually lived in that house too. And I remember the day that we went to the new house as well. So yeah, it was on 2nd Street in Winston-Salem.
So the Kemps were one of those families, like all those many, many, many other families who got displaced.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
of Highway 52. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have pictures of Mr. Kemp?
I don't with me. I don't.
Well, not with you, but can you locate some, do you think, in the future?
I'll have to get back with you because right off the bat, I'm not sure, but I will try. I'll leave it like that. I'll try because
Okay,
there was so many things misplaced and things happen over the years or whatever, but I even saw his uniform and everything that he had from the war and everything because it was kept in a trunk, locked, so nobody would go in and stuff. And then my grandmother would put preservative stuff in there so it wouldn't dry rot and everything else. But over time, everything diminishes.
well, if you are able to find something in the future, we would love to have a copy of that because
Okay.
we do have pictures of some of our veterans. We have a book, and I can say thank you to Mr. Jimmy Gist for helping to put this together. But we do have some pictures of, if I can find one real quick. Well, this is, let me get it up there. This is Lieutenant Ellington, who was the Tuskegee Airman. So we do have an image and know what he looked like. So if you can find anything for Mr.
Okay.
Kemp, we would love to have it.
I'll be glad
And
to.
another question, what church was he a member of?
He was a a member of Mount Zion Baptist Church in Winston-Salem.
Okay, great. And I'm sure, speaking of that, I'm sure you already know that Reverend File, the very long time pastor of Mount Zion, is also buried there too.
Yes, ma'am.
And we know where that family, in fact, it's the whole family plot. And so we know where that headstone is. And Mr. Elamine asked, what was the name of the church? And you just said that. Okay. This is wonderful. I just hope that in the future we can get some pictures, just any picture, because that will just make it so complete. Any other questions or any other comments from anyone? And I don't know if our president is on, James Clyburn. He had some difficulty last time. Mr. Clyburn, did you make it on today? And I don't see his name. Okay. Would any of our other board members like to say anything? Deltra, Greg. Jody is one of our big supporters from out of state. And Martha has one more question. Pamela, do you have pictures of the old home place on 2nd Street?
Okay, I do not have a picture, what I think you're talking about as far as the front, like the full house or whatever. I have pictures of me, like on the stairs. I have pictures of me and my grandmother on the sidewalk where the wall was or whatever. You can see like a picture that has like the back porch and the fence and everything else, but I do not have a picture of the total front of the house and everything else. But there may be a way to get it because I know what the address was and everything else. You never know, they may keep that type of information, maybe through the clerk's office or somewhere that I might get.
And again, we would love if you care to share. We know that those are personal pictures, but if you would care to share any of that, we would just love to have it. And then another question was, where did the family move after they were displaced by Highway 52?
Okay, we moved right up the street, still on 2nd Street, between what used to be Claremont Avenue and Greenwood Avenue.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, Deltra or Greg, would either of you like to make a comment before we close? Deltra?
I'm just glad that we had the opportunity to do this series, and I'm trusting it is just the beginning of what we can do. This kind of information, and we wouldn't have been able to pull it together had it not been for Cliff. So Cliff, You may be graduating, but trust me, we know how to get in touch with you. So I just want to thank everybody for being on board and all the contributions that have been made. We are indebted to everyone who's participating in this. And just because this particular segment is over doesn't mean that we want to discontinue our relationship. So we're hoping to build upon it. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you. And if Cliff does go on to the Smithsonian or whatever museum he ends up at, don't forget, we will call you and you can do an exhibit at your museum of the Oddfellows restoration.
Hmm. Linda,
Cliff?
could I make a footnote? Do you have 30 seconds?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that community that she just described is my old neighborhood as well. My grandfather had a grocery store on 1301 East First Street in Greenwood that I grew up in, literally. And we used to stay on Rich and for a while on Shackelford. All that was destroyed when 52 came through. But finally, I used to have my students do a genealogical survey of 150 years. And I would start with my birthday, February 23rd, 1952. On the front page of the journal, there was an article on the Oddfellow Cemetery. And I kept that, yes. And I said, wow, one day I'll be able to use this. So one day I'll try to find that and make it a part of the discussion.
From 1952, that article?
Yes, 1952,
Yeah,
on the front page of
okay.
the journals, front page news of an activity out of Oddfellow Cemetery. So I'll find it's around the house somewhere. I'll have to look it up.
And I'll check with the library to see, because you can also, I don't know when they started microfilming, but I will check. I do have a contact there. I'll check with her to see if we can get that. That'll be great.
All right.
Thanks for sharing that.
I have a question for Pamela, if I may.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, I used to live in that neighborhood on the second, near Second and Ridge Avenue. What was the
Did
address?
you?
Yes,
Are you talking about the first address?
yes.
It was 707.
Hmm.
That was the first one. That was the one that was at 52.
Mhm.
And then when we moved up the street, it was 1307. That's the one that was between Greenwood and Claremont.
I used to live on Ridge Avenue between Second Street and Norfolk.
Really?
Hmm.
Your last name is Gist. Are you related to John Gist?
That's my brother.
Okay, all right, okay. He was a firefighter,
Fire
right?
chief.
Fire
Fire
chief.
Hey,
chief.
Pamela.
Fire
As
chief, okay.
Pamela,
Yes.
as I told you, it's a small world. I told you that.
Yes, ma'am. I went to Winston-Salem State with John as well.
Pamela, he
He
was
was
a
older
fire
than I
chief.
was.
He was a fire
Fire
chief
chief.
of Winston-Salem.
Okay, well, I wasn't living there, so I didn't know. I knew he worked at the fire department. That's what he told me, and I didn't know about the rest of it and everything. But that's great. I remember where you guys lived too, growing up. That's great.
Hmm.
So as I told you, there are many, many, many connections when you start asking questions.
That's wonderful.
That's wonderful. Greg, did you want to say anything? Did you want to add anything?
No, I was just gonna say, great job by Cliff on putting this together. Thank you very, very much for all your hard work on this. And Linda, thank you to yourself for organizing this series of presentations and getting the information out and the invitations to everyone that attended today and continue to learn about the history of the Oddfellow Cemetery and the important folks that are buried there. And I'm tickled to be part of this larger community of folks trying to restore the cemetery. So I find this stuff fascinating, and I enjoyed listening to the stories and the anecdotes of people living next to each other and not even knowing it, and or knowing each other. And I enjoy listening to those types of stories. So thank you very much. The other thing I was going to say is there a chance that any of the information on Mr. Kemp might be via Ancestry? I was just wondering if Ms. Dabb might have done anything via ancestry to
No,
learn a
no,
little bit more?
I have a plethora of information that I've been doing about all the members of my family because I've always been interested in the history and everything else, but on ancestry, no, it is not.
I have some information from Ancestry.
Yes, and the information I got was from the 1940 census, but it was on familysearch.org. But we can certainly, once we get more details, we can certainly do that type of genealogical research. And I also see that Dr. Villa Gomez is on from Winston-Salem State. And the reason I bring her up is because she has students and she has student interns. So Dr. Villa Gomez, would you like to say anything? And when can we get a student?
Well, thank you, Ms. Stark. I'm just delighted and blessed to be with all of you again today. Last week was wonderful, and today was just, learning with your heart. I think when we come together, we're learning with our hearts, and there's no better way than that. I think the work that you all are doing is so important. I have the blessing of working with you, Ms. Linda, through the African American Heritage Initiative. And so right now our interns are aligned with that project for this semester, but moving forward, my student Nigel had really devoted a whole year of his life to studying various veterans and going and cleaning before it was really kind of coordinated. So I really hope that there can be something more formal. I know some of our fraternities probably could get involved more, but I just want to end with one note. Yesterday, I was part of the first meeting for a group that's working on archives and sort of the reparative justice of archives as public historians and archivists work together. So what you all are doing, and many of you are part of our Winston-Salem African American Archive, so that, we have all these beautiful bridges. And so the National Council of Public Historians is the largest organization. It's made up of academic PhDs, archivists, and then wonderful, incredible public historians. What grieved me yesterday was that I was the only person of color. I was the only person from an HBCU. And so on one side, it was just really wonderful to see many, many open-hearted white people who are devoting their life's work to this reparative justice. But I kept thinking, why aren't the Black voices there? So I think with various people here today, we know that Black history belongs to everybody. And at the same time, I think for any endeavor that's a public history or an archive, we have to have the people who are from the community really being the leaders, and then everyone else can come in and partner. So what you're doing is so incredible, and there's work all over the country. And so I just I'm just so blessed that we can come together like this and continue to work for the cemetery and then everything else that African Americans have experienced and contributed and made for the whole community of our city. So thanks again for letting me speak.
Thank you. And you brought up something that made me think of something else. I'll just say this very quickly and then we will close. There is also an African American Cemetery Coalition, which is brand new. I think it started out with Durham, North Carolina, and other cemeteries in the state. I joined it on behalf of the Oddfellow Cemetery, Virginia, I think Florida and Georgia. But there is a potential bill in the House of Representatives. I know that Alma Adams has something to do with it. Sherrod Brown has something to do with it. But there is difficulty in the language because it seems to be at this point favoring owners of these African-American cemeteries rather than having any connection to the descendants. So we are saying that we want the descendants to have, a partnership or 50-50 or however it's going to be worked out. And they are actually having a meeting about that today. So I did send that information about the coalition to our Odd Fellows members. I sent that in a previous email, but that's something that we all need to be aware of because there are so many all over the country abandoned Black cemeteries or Black cemeteries that have been paved over, cut through, destroyed, whatever. And so we need to have this legislation to protect those. So on behalf of our president, I don't see him here today, but on behalf of James Clyburn, just want to thank all of you for participating. Thank all of you for your support in the past, and we look forward to continued working with you. So thanks everybody very much. Have a great afternoon. And again, Ms. Dowd Miller, you're the bomb. Thank you.
Thank you all.
you.
God bless you. Thank you for everything that you do. And I'm always available. Just know that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a
Thank
good one.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Cliff.
No problem.